Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Rise and Grind. I hope you had a great weekend. It's been one full week since the solar eclipse, and depending on where you were in the country, you may have experienced totality. Here on the East Coast, I think we're projected to get 89% coverage, and it didn't quite seem that way. If you had the glasses, my husband did come home with the glasses and surprise me, so I did get to peek out at what it looked like, and it was pretty cool, but it was still relatively sunny. One of our team members, Ryan, he had actually posted, he dragged his lunch down to the beach, sat down, thought he was in for a total show, and was a little bit disappointed by it. And that clip actually went on to one of New Jersey's tourist Instagram pages. I think it was nj.com, the publication page, which was really cool to see. So I hope you did enjoy the eclipse. It was a historical moment for many, and I believe the next one is in 2033, or something like that. So we have a few years ahead of us. All right, so this morning I was scrolling through Instagram and I got an ad for this movie called Fly Me to the Moon, which seems really, really interesting. Scarlett Johansson's in it, but essentially it's about this woman who was hired to market the moon. So of course, me in marketing, I'm like, oh, this seems pretty interesting. How would I go about marketing the moon? And while the movie itself is based on a fictional story, there's still some historic pieces to it. I mean, we did have to market the moon at one point in time. I believe it was the Apollo mission that we began to market because we were in this race to get to the moon. It was us and Russia back at the time in the Cold War. And we needed all of the support we could get to get our troops to the moon, to get our astronauts to the moon. So they went on and started marketing the Apollo mission. And what was really interesting about this back then is that because we were in this race, they leaned on the competitive edge of, hey, we want America to win. So they were able to build this audience of both people who wanted to support because they believed in the future of science, and then you have people who maybe didn't really care, didn't really know too much about the moon, but was really patriotic and just wanted to see America win or beat Russia. So they were able to really pull in two completely different consumers, and even more, kids who were curious, families who wanted to see a rocket launch into space. They were able to curate such a large audience and so much support surrounding that. And then we have NASA today. The company itself has evolved as our technology has evolved, but something that I kept hearing as I was watching the news of the eclipse is their tagline now, which is, it was repeated a few different times, and it's, at NASA, we make air and space available for everyone. And I thought that was so interesting. I mean, the first time that I heard it, I paused for a second and was like, air and space available for everybody. That's so interesting. And I had a chance to go back and look at the evolution of their taglines, and they all really depict what the future could be. So it's interesting to hear, when I hear making space and air available for everyone, I think very futuristic. Like we have cars flying in the sky, or different hover jets, and we're living in this futuristic world where we live in the air. It's really interesting. I mean, we have cartoons that depict that as well. So we'll see what the future holds. But I'm also excited to watch that movie. It was an Apple exclusive, I believe. So if you have Apple or you want to go watch it, definitely check it out. Channing Tatum was in it as well. Definitely looks like a good movie. Yesterday, I was also having a conversation with a team member, and she's working with this small business, and we had the challenge of, how do you make the most of a really small budget? How do you effectively use a small marketing budget? And she was saying that this client in particular wanted to put it into a specific channel that we both knew wasn't going to drive the ROI that they were expecting. They wanted to put all of their eggs in this one basket. So as we're brainstorming, I said, hey, listen, if I were a small business and I had a really small budget, I would continue to leverage my organic efforts, meaning I would continue to post on social media. I would make sure that I had a email marketing strategy of some sort that really nurtured anybody that I created a touch point with. And I would definitely make sure I was working on search engine optimization so that I'm appearing for a lot of the keywords and search terms that are being used. But when it came to my actual ad dollars, how I would use it in particular is by creating this almost like a consumer touch point circle based on retargeting. So what I've seen a lot of brands do, and what we've done to drive a lot of success to smaller businesses, is start out by casting a wide net, meaning let's target audiences based on lookalikes. Maybe are there other brands that are similar to yours that we can target interest based off of? Are there specific activities or interests or behaviors that your target market displays? Let's start to boost some social content out to those markets to see who engages. So you can use the organic content that you're posting on social media to do this, right? And you can just boost a post. Let's say it's for $10, $15, whatever it may be throughout the month. You're casting this net to see who actually engages. From there, you can retarget them with an ad based on anyone who visited your social media profile, anyone who engaged with that specific ad or social post, or anyone who visited your website, which is the next step in our retargeting process. So let's say now that second ad where they have already made a touch point on your social media platform, now they're going to your website. Well, you can retarget anyone who landed on your website within 60 days, 90 days, within the past 60 days or the past 90 days. So what I would do is create a series of retargeting ads that are based off of the strongest value ads and the strongest offers you have, and make sure that your strongest offer is towards the bottom of that funnel, because it takes so many touch points for consumers to actually make a purchase or actually convert. So what you want to do is create a series of these micro touch points so that by the time they are delivered your strongest offer, they're ready to convert because they've already subconsciously built that trust with your brand. So that's how I would use a really small marketing budget, focus on the organic side, and use your budget to retarget, keep creating those touch points, and keep delivering value to that specific audience. And if you need help, you know where to find us too. We love answering these questions in our DMs. We get them all the time. What would you do with X? Lately we've seen, what would you do with a social media content series? How would you help it go viral, which is really interesting, and we can talk about that next week. But if you have any questions, DM us, go to our website, send them in there. We're definitely interested to hear what solutions you need to help with your brand. Okay, speaking of different social media platforms, there are a few trends we're seeing. Our friends over at Agora Pulse shared that engagement is really shifting on LinkedIn. Overall, across social media platforms, actually, we're seeing engagement really start to decline, which is interesting, but we're also seeing that consumer behavior is shifting as well, where consumers are just being a lot more mindful of how they're spending time on their phones or on social media. And they're starting to either put it down or put limits on their social media apps, which admittedly, I feel like I probably should do. There are times where I even catch myself like, wow, I went on to check my email. How am I now 4 swipes into Instagram? It's a bad habit. It's a bad habit, right? But for me, I'm always so interested to see what brands are posting, what content's going viral, what new trends are popping up. So I guess I have the excuse that it's part of the job, but for others, they're getting sucked into this social media cycle and they're being more mindful of that and they're putting their phone down. So engagement is dropping overall, which is really interesting. But on LinkedIn, they're finding that engagement is the highest on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which is interesting because, a few years back on LinkedIn, it was really the beginning part of the week, not the weekend, especially Friday and Saturday. Saturday is really surprising to me, but sounds like people are waking up and they're looking to see what their peers or coworkers are doing. I overheard a conversation taking place in the grocery store a few weeks ago about how LinkedIn seems like the new Facebook nowadays. People are sharing so many different achievements and things going on in their life, and that was just really interesting to me, especially because it was somewhat of a younger demographic. When you think about who's on Facebook sharing things about their life, tends to be an older demographic. So is LinkedIn the new Facebook? I don't know. I don't particularly use it like that, but I'd be interested to see how all of you use it. All right, another social trend that we're seeing right now is that brands are actually pledging against using AI content for their ads. And this is part of their transparency mission. So any brand, or I shouldn't say any brand, some brands who are really pushing transparency and just being real, are now pledging that they will not be using AI to create any content for their brand. One of the brands that recently did this was Dove. They said, hey, listen, we are not going to use any AI for any of the bodies that are portrayed in any of our ads or social media. We would never do that. And that makes total sense for their brand, especially because Dove really prides themselves on being transparent. They had the whole Real Bodies, right, or Every Body campaign a few years back that really drove this whole body image movement, I would say. So for them to say, hey, we're not going to use AI to create any of the models in any of our content, really speaks volumes, because we're seeing it pop up a lot, right? Where a lot of brands are using AI to create different videos and images, and AI created content looks more and more real. It is really hard to guess what's AI and what's not nowadays. So I'm interested to see what other brands pop up in pledging against using AI created content or created images. So we'll see. And also, are we rioting against AI? That's how it feels right now. I don't know. Again, we say this, I feel like every single week, but there are so many ways you can use AI tools to benefit yourself, to benefit your brand, your workflows, your day-to-day. And then there's, cons in it, but there's pros and cons to literally every single thing in life, every single thing in business, and especially with marketing and social media, right? All right, now the next trend that I have is with Google. I have been geeking out lately because month after month there is a new Google partnership or a new Google merger, and now there's a rumor that Google is going to acquire Hubspot, which is really, really interesting from a marketing standpoint, because Google offers so many different advertising options, like you have your Google search, your shopping ads, your display ads, but then you also have your YouTube ads. And then just recently we had Pinterest ads within that partnership. So with all of these advertising efforts, if we now bring in HubSpot to integrate directly into the platform itself, well, we're looking at an all-in-one, right? And depending on how available some of those features are, I know for most HubSpot features, you do have to pay to access certain marketing features within the platform, but depending on how accessible it is with this new partnership, it could completely shift the way a lot of brands market, depending on if they're marketing in all of these different channels. I know a big pain point for a lot of the clients that we work with is, hey, there's so many logins and there's so many different platforms and websites that I have to go to. It's chaos. Can everything just be in one spot? And it kind of sounds like this is where Google is shifting. I mean, we have search, advertising, your CRM, all in one. Just really, really interesting. I'm excited for that. Again, we're HubSpot users, so I'm going to be paying attention to this trend. However, it is a rumor. I do have to emphasize that. It is a rumor, and HubSpot does not want to comment on the rumor. They never comment on the rumors. So we'll see if it is actually true or not. I think it could be a really cool partnership. I'm sure a lot of different advertisers think that. All right, that is all of the trends that I have, but I do have some motivation for this week. And last week we talked about the 5 a.m. club, which I'm still making my way through. But this week's motivation comes from the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep by Mark Manson. And the book talks about different habits that help you live an anxious-free life by essentially coming to terms that the inevitable will happen. And there's things outside of your control that you can't spend all day thinking about. You have to just not give a bleep about it and think about the bigger picture. And I think about this a lot because John has even mentioned this a few times where he has said, if you start your week knowing and expecting for things to pop up and things to go wrong, then you're going to be much more prepared for it, right? It doesn't shake you as much as if you're expecting for this week to be sunshine and rainbows and then little inconveniences start to pop up. You see them as inconveniences. Whereas if you start the week knowing, I'm gonna have a great week, but I'm going to have to deal with a handful of inconveniences. It's just the way that it is. You're not as disrupted throughout the week when they do actually happen, right? So throughout the book, it really challenges you to think about what is important enough to you to essentially deplete your energy on trying to fix it or think about it, or just spend any energy on it, right? Because if it's inevitable, you can't get caught up in the details. So for example, let's say that what's a good example? Let's say you're presenting at a conference for the first time and you're prepared, right? What you can control is your presentation, right? You know your pitch, you created your slides, you feel confident, you've practiced, but then you get up there and in the middle of your presentation, there's a tech glitch or a tech failure and your presentation goes off or your mic turns off, right? Are you going to all of a sudden shift your energy and attention towards that, or are you going to find a way to carry on and continue to engage your audience? So that's an example. I would hope that it's the latter because that's the only thing you can control in that moment. But there's a lot of people out there, including myself sometimes, that can get really shaken up by the things that are out of your control. And it's a nice reminder to kind of check yourself of, is this worth my energy? Or is there a greater picture that I should be focusing on, a greater goal that I should be focusing on? And I see this with both, our team and our clients getting so caught up in the details and having to really remind themselves, and again, I'm guilty of it too, if this small detail doesn't contribute to a greater goal, we have to just move on from it. So this week, I hope that you are more mindful and in the moment when you feel like your energy is shifting, you're not as focused, maybe you feel a little bit inconvenienced. Is this a problem that you can delegate, or is it something that you really need to focus on because it does get you to that next step? Thank you again for watching. That's all that we have for today. And again, we'll see you next week, or I'll see you next week, Monday at 9 a.m. Create a great week.